Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's broadcast of Tap Into the Truth. Thanks for listening. Once again, we are broadcasting live from Roane County, Tennessee. And today is, of course, the national observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So for those of you who are celebrating that day, then I hope it has been a good day for you. And for those of us who had to go out and work and do our regular daytime jobs and did not get the benefit of said holiday, just keep in mind that sometimes equality is an issue of working together. We're going to get to the topic of the fact that today was also the shared day of the celebration of the second inauguration of the occupier. Just so happened to coincide, although in all honesty it's a waste of time and waste of money, but I'll get into that shortly. Let's start with a few topics from the news. According to a report from the Congressional Budget Office, the federal policies to promote, subsidize the manufacture and purchase of electric vehicles is going to cost the American taxpayer $7.5 billion over the next 3.5 years, with little to no effect on benefits to fuel economy, despite the raising of the federal requirements on the CAFE standards. As a member of the National Pro-Life Alliance, I received in my inbox today a email from the group stating that as American taxpayers, not only are we spending money to fund abortions, but now we're also spending taxpayer dollars to force women to have abortions. The crux of this particular story is the fact that the U.S. is sending money and putting it into the United Nations Population Fund. That's a fund that China uses to subsidize their one-child policy. Also in the news, possibly part of the conspiracy corner, Homeland Security continues hoarding ammo, and now local police are having difficulty getting enough ammunition. Police stations and sheriff's departments are scrambling to get bullets while the DHS stockpiles. They are currently over 1.2 billion rounds purchased in the last 6 months alone. Also part of the conspiracy corner, there is now a petition that is at the whitehouse.gov petition area, asking for the release of the Sandy Hook surveillance. This is of course in response to the so-called Sandy Hook truthers, who have put together substantial videos and their version of evidence that the entirety of Sandy Hook is nothing more than a black flag operation intended to trigger the demanding by U.S. citizens to have themselves disarmed. I have seen some of these videos. If you have not, I recommend you take a peek at a few of them and decide for yourself. I have mentioned before that while I may not necessarily agree with any particular conspiracy or conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist, that I do refuse to just ignore these people offhand, especially if they've taken the time to compile certain coincidences in a matter that appears as though there's something going on. And based on what I've seen to this point, I tend to say that it may not be a bad idea if the surveillance videos were released. If for no other reason, to silence the critics.
If you're interested in signing this petition, you can find it at petitions.whitehouse.gov/petition/release video surveillance footage Sandy Hook Elementary School Deering shooting massacre. Each one of those words with a dash between it. /NQ9ZMSTC. That will take you directly to that petition if you're interested in signing it, or if you're just interested in taking a look at it. Again, these petitions typically tend to be a waste of time as they go to the White House, and the occupier has little to no interest whatsoever in seeing anything is done with any of these petitions. It's just a way of letting you vent. I mean, part of the biggest thing to let you know that he has no interest in actually following through with any of this is the fact that they did indeed raise the number of signatures from 25,000 to 100,000 before they were forced to respond. And when you consider that they make the rules for what the threshold is, and it's still up to them to respond, it doesn't mean they have to do anything. It just means they have to release an official response. Oh, we want to deport Pierce Morgan. I think we all knew how that was going to go in the first place. But the upside of taking the time to do this is you are still voicing your opinion. And in the process, you put these people on notice that you're paying attention. You're watching. You're seeing what they're up to. Now, on to today's topic. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the day that we set aside to celebrate the birthday of the civil rights giant. And it also happened to be the day in which we celebrated the second inauguration of the occupier. The reason why I say celebrate is because the Constitution requires that whoever is going to be holding the office of president takes the oath of office on the 20th. It's become a matter of tradition that because federal facilities are not operating on Sundays, that if the 20th falls on a Sunday, they still have to take the oath, which both he and Joe Biden did on the 20th. But then they turn around and they have all the parties and the hoopla and the national blah, 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 blah that goes on the next day. Now, why hold off till Monday if that Monday happens to fall on a national holiday? Kind of defeats the purpose of not going ahead and doing it on Sunday. Except in this particular case, make no mistake about it, the occupier wants to be seen as fulfilling part of Dr. King's dream. I've got some counterpoints to that argument, but here's the big thing. First of all, there's no point in having this man take the oath of office because he's already shown he has no interest in upholding that oath. The very first part of the oath is to protect and defend the Constitution. He has been a primary attacker of the Constitution. It is, needless to say, a waste of taxpayer dollars. It is a ridiculous it's a ridiculous spectacle to do all the hoopla and have the big party when you know, first of all, he didn't actually win this past election. But even if he had, okay, he's already had one inauguration. Why have a second? Personally, this is all about a in-your-face kind of thing to the other side. I've never been a big fan of that. And unless you're going to pay for this stuff out of your own pocket, if you're going to use taxpayer dollars to do all this stuff, I say it needs to be done away with. Just have a little quiet ceremony, have TV cameras there to cover it, and take the oath, and then go do your job. But anyway, that's my opinion on the celebrations. Now, on the topic of the occupier's second inaugural address, He came out trumpeting the same themes of class warfare that propelled his so-called re-election campaign. The occupier devoted a big part of this inaugural address to laying out his second-term agenda. In his words, a struggle to undo the injustices of America's past and to overcome the army of those who would stand in opposition to progress. In the process, the occupier attempted nothing less than an assault on the timeless notion of liberty itself. Through it all, we have never relinquished our skepticism of central authority, nor have we succumbed to the fiction that all society's ills can be cured through government alone. These are the occupier's words. But we have always understood that when times change, so must we. That fidelity to our founding principles requires new responses to new challenges. That preserving our individual freedoms ultimately requires collective action. Pay close attention to the phrasing, ladies and gentlemen. This man tells you enough of what he's really thinking that you have no choice but to feel like an idiot if you don't pick up on it. After praising the collective and mocking the notion that America is a nation of takers, the occupier targeted the political opposition. Specifically, he targeted those who deny climate change, attacked those who allegedly refuse to reward the elderly for their contributions, and defined critics whom said wanted perpetual war. I'm sorry, isn't he the guy doing the Predator drone attacks all over the world right now? Anyway, he also attacked the rich, as he's done so very often over the past 4 years, and he painted a caricature of an unjust nation. Quote, "Our country cannot succeed when a shrinking few do very well and a growing many barely make it. We do not believe that in this country freedom is reserved for the lucky or happiness for the few." The occupier's address failed to deliver on promises from David Axelrod that the speech would sound themes of national unity. Instead, the occupier sounded combative, with themes familiar from his divisive first term, albeit wrapped occasionally in the very lofty rhetoric of hope and tolerance, and punctuated by the repeated refrain, "We the people." He acknowledged Americans have diverse concepts of liberty, but insisted that these could all fit together under the collective mission of the government to achieve its redistributive aims. Days after describing Republicans as determined to hurt the poor and elderly, he accused the opposition of intolerance. Quote, "We cannot mistake absolutism for principle, or substitute spectacle for politics, or treat name-calling as reasonable debate." Well, what do you know? For once, I agree with something the man said. Unfortunately, he's got it wrong as far as which side is doing that.